guys, so we only have 10 minutes left. Shall we talk about it together as a group? Okay. Well, we have 10 more minutes, but I think let's try and come to some agreement now. Was that helpful to talk to each other? Do you feel like you've clarified your ideas a little bit, or no? Still the same confusion? You're full, you feel good? You're okay?
We can get more ideas from the others.
Yes, it's very helpful, absolutely. And so you can make this a practice, right? To talk about the assignments together in class time. I think that's important to do. Okay? Like we were saying, the more time you have to prepare your ideas, the better your writing is going to be. And it's great to get feedback from other people, right? Because sometimes we think it's very clear in our own mind, but then when we try and explain it to others, we discover that it's not so clear, or maybe they give us that feedback that they didn't understand, right? So, do you have any specific questions for me about this theorem? Or do you want to give an example of what you're thinking and we walk through it and see whether we think it's a good idea or not?
So the first question we want to ask is about the hypothesis number 1, and the last question, does this represent acquisition and learning? I don't know, what does this mean?
Okay, let's see. I think that, does this represent acquisition and learning?
I mean, the differences between learning and Krashen
Okay, so good point. Let's check this out here. So we have two thises, right? So in the first one, if this is true, what does this refer to?
The differences.
The differences, right? So if the differences between the two is true, then if you've learned in a classroom and you go to France, you won't be able to use it, right? Because what Krashen is saying is that you acquire language naturally, and then you learn the language, and the learning serves as your monitor to monitor your production. So what he says is that only acquisition is used for production. Learning is not used for production. So first of all, do you agree with that? Of course not. Your students are only learning English and they use it, right? So it doesn't really make much sense, right? That was his theory. He's been criticized for it. There have been a lot of arguments against it. But still, this distinction seems interesting, right? We can make sense that it is certainly different when you acquire and when you learn formally, right? It's a different process, and you might learn different things in different ways. It might be better for different people, right? Some people might prefer learning to acquisition. And then the second one, so does this represent acquisition and learning? So what do you think this refers to?
This means that saying.
Not saying what was said before, right? This quotation, this situation, right? So referring to the previous quote, what this person said. Do you think that this is true, that if you learn French in the classroom and then go to France, you won't be able to use it? Of course not, I disagree, right? Yeah. Why? That's the hardest
So
part.
that means the two questions over there serve the same idea of the first hypothesis.
Yeah.
The first one is the theory, and the second one is an example.
Right. They build on each other.
But actually, we don't have to answer
Each question.
specifically.
Yeah.
No, I don't think so.
You just say the way that learning and acquiring assist each other, that's all.
The way they assist each other. Yeah, I think that basically what you can do with this one is talk about the differences between learning and acquisition. And do you agree that learning cannot be used as acquisition? Okay, to summarize. Did somebody write that down?
Yes.
Right? Okay, you got it? So, do you agree that, on this difference between learning and acquisition? And do you agree that learning cannot be used as production, right?
And can we be our own example, our own?
Yeah, sure, absolutely, absolutely. I think that your own experience is valid, right? It's as valid as Krashen's observations that led him to this hypothesis, right? You have experience as a teacher, as a language learner. How did you feel, right? Did you have a specific example where you learned and then went abroad and used it, right? So you can say, no, I disagree with this, I did it myself. Are we okay with number one?
Yes.
Yes, yay. Okay, number two. So, you agree that if a learner tends to monitor his or her own form, doing so gets in the way of acquiring the language.
Yes.
Do you agree with that? Why?
I think this hypothesis is very clear,
It's very clear.
right?
Yeah.
Do you agree? Then we can answer that. Well,
Do you agree or disagree? You agree? Why do you agree? Anybody, tell me.
Yeah, because when we talk about acquiring a language, this means I think we use it for the casual conversation or communication purposes or more than learning academically.
Okay.
So it means when we want to express our purpose or ideas, we don't really focus on the forms.
Mhm.
And what we focus on is the content and the information that we want to transfer. So this means we don't focus on.
Yeah, I think that here, we don't need to worry so much about the word acquire. I think that they're not trying to specifically say in a natural situation. The problem is we only have two terms, right? We have learning and acquisition. And so what they're trying to say is if you focus too much on monitoring your form, if you worry too much about correcting yourself, does that interfere with your getting the language? Like learning it somehow, anyhow. If you learn it by natural means or in a classroom, does it impede you from knowledge, from understanding, from being able to use the language? So they're using the word acquire here, but I don't think they're using it in Krashen's sense. I think what they're using it here is they're just saying in being able to use the language, in knowing the language. Do you understand what I'm saying? Yeah.
We shouldn't break it down to deep.
Yeah.
To little things.
We're not using Krashen's idea of acquisition in this sentence right here, okay? We have to be careful. We're not always referring to Krashen. Then, so do you agree with this? That if you monitor your form so much, it will get in trouble with your knowledge? Maybe it gets in trouble with your production, right? It slows down your production. But perhaps it makes you a very careful learner if you're always thinking about it. Maybe you'll be more precise. Maybe it'll take you longer though, right? So this question is about time, isn't it? Integrate into your answer the concept of speed. So we said yesterday, when we constantly monitor ourselves, it slows us down, right? Because of the affective filter, right? We're always thinking about what we're saying, makes us speak slower. So maybe it makes us learn slower too, because we feel inhibited, we feel insecure, we don't feel confident about the knowledge that we're gaining. We're always second guessing ourselves, right? That is the idea that the monitor cannot be used at all times because of the speed of speech. So when you become fluent in a language, your monitor isn't so active anymore. You're just speaking it. You're not thinking about it, right? You really do it naturally. I'm sure you feel like that with English, right? When you're speaking English, you feel very comfortable. When you're teaching a class, you're not monitoring yourself all the time. Maybe once in a while you think, oh, oops, I shouldn't have said that, right? That happens. but you're not doing it constantly because you're very fluent, right?
In some topics.
Of course, we all have our domains, right? So if you're going to go and talk about medicine or law in English or engineering or something, even I would have difficulty, right? I don't dominate that vocabulary. I don't know that background, right?
So, in that second hypothesis, should we divide into two different questions? Actually, there are just one question, so when we try to explain the first question, we're going to integrate the concept of speed in that.
Yes, yeah. I think you can go step by step. You can say yes or no and why, and then talk about speed. Like bring that in as another reason to support your answer. Okay? Any other questions about number 2?
So we will raise copy the question to teacher our CLI.
Personally, I think it's more elegant if you rephrase it. It's kind of a primary level to copy and paste the question and then just answer it. If at a master's level, it's much more sophisticated if you can reformulate it somehow, right? This is a kind of a tricky question. It's difficult to say, so it might be hard. But if you could put it into your own words, that would be better. Okay? It might be difficult. If it's too difficult, don't worry. But you need to address the question somehow. So hopefully in the way that you address the question, you make the question clear to the reader. Okay? Ideally, no, you shouldn't copy and paste. If you have to, okay. Summarize.
No way.
There
It's
is
just like
no
some
other
if
choices.
a person pick up the paper, they need to know that okay, why are you trying to answer?
Yeah,
The
yeah.
purpose.
I think that you should try and rephrase it. That's the best alternative in my opinion. In terms of
So
style.
just take the key words of
There you go. That's a
And
strategy.
when we rephrase it and we misinterpret it,
That's the risk.
then we go different way and we get that mark.
That's the
You have
risk.
gone too far.
That could happen. Be careful. So then number 3.
Please go back on task.
We talked a lot about this one yesterday. How you feel about it now? Not too good?
I have one question. The question that I asked is the forms here.
Okay.
Is that the grammar on when the grammar?
Yeah, forms is morphemes basically.
And then the input here, what is it?
What's input?
Any kind of input.
Any kind, right? Where does
For
input,
example?
for example, where does input come from?
Listening, reading, watching TV.
Friends,
So
conversation.
input is the way we expose to the language.
Yes,
And
exactly.
anyways,
Anyway,
it's called input.
absolutely. It could be in a classroom, it could be reading.
It could be playing games.
It could be, yeah,
When
absolutely.
you talk about games here, I don't know how to play games.
Build it down.
He's a
Lies.
good student.
Yes.
So also about this one, the third one, they ask us to discuss in terms of time, form, and the rules, and three factors that they are mentioning here. Actually, part of the monitor hypothesis. So, do I answer this question? Try to relate it to the monitor hypothesis?
That's the best idea. Remember, if you go back and look at the rubrics, part of the points are in your being able to relate it to the theory, right? So you want to be able to throw in, remember the salt and pepper, right? So throw in the salt and pepper about Krashen and what he said, and, right?
And I found, if I do that, I found it very difficult to relate the first part of the question to the second part. The second part is about monitor. The first part is about
It's banana user.
morphic.
So are they related? I mean,
Yeah, that's right. Yeah, exactly.
this is what again?
What is this one?
Yeah.
So this, that,
The first one is about multi-order study. The second one is about monitor.
This study is
And they try to discuss internal monitor. How do I discuss like multiple monitor? What is not even real?
So according to the monitor hypothesis, what you acquire, you can use to initiate speech. According to the monitor hypothesis, what you acquire, you can use to initiate speech. You use to talk, right? What you acquire, you use for production. But what you learn, you don't use for production. That's according to Krashen. That's what he says in the monitor model. That kind of goes back to number 2. That was that situation in France, right? And so, I lost my train of thought. So, acquisition has to do with input, right? You're in a natural environment and you're receiving all kinds of input from the natural environment. And so then therefore you're able to produce because you've had this input. Well, the classroom is also a form of input. But according to Krashen, we can't convert that input to output. And the monitor model is talking about output. It's talking about using the rules, using the form, knowing the rules and when to apply them. So I think this is where where they kind of overlap. Yes, you made a really good point. That's a good clarification. That one part of the question is kind of talking about morpheme order studies, but the other part with the monitor model is talking about input and output. So this is where you need to incorporate the theory to explain the production, because it says discuss this in terms of these things. So do you agree that you learn, so once again, right, we need to be careful with, do you get, yeah, exactly, do you get all the forms in a second language in a particular order, regardless of the input? So whether you've been exposed to language in a natural environment, or whether you've been exposed to it in a classroom, are you still going to acquire it in a specific order? But then, when you go to use it, talk about these 3 things. So you need to think about the steps of it. How do you learn it first? And then how do you go about using it? How do you get the input? And then how do you do the production? Yeah. Think about it some more tonight, okay, and see if that helped or not. Maybe what you can do is kind of like start to write an outline for what you would like to do for the paper. So the paper is supposed to be due on Sunday, right? I do think that you need more time to be able to finish it. Tomorrow, Saturday, we're going to spend half the day in class. It will be difficult to finish all 3 of these questions by Sunday night, right? So would it be okay with you if they hand it in like on Wednesday or something?
It's okay.
Is that okay? Yeah. Does that help? Yeah? Because you have PA 2 due the following Sunday, so I don't want to extend it a whole week. Because then we'll get in a chain effect, right? Where then,
Right.
yeah,
We
the
walk around.
domino effect, right?
We
Yeah.
walk around the clock this Sunday, don't we?
Okay, all right.
Next Sunday, get up for it.
Do what you can, right? Like try and get it out of the way. You want to be finished, the sooner the better, so you can move on to the next one. but I don't want you to stress and do a poor job because you don't have enough time.
So can I say the deadline will be next Wednesday?
Wednesdays,
The
yeah.
deadline.
So the outer limit,
Yeah, and it does not reflect that the DQ, so can DQ still Wednesday.
right, they're still
Okay.
due on the same day.
So it will be Wednesday the same, okay?
Put it in the
What?
She gonna have.
just when we submit the paper, put it
To turn it in?
in. Turn it in, it will be late.
I'll tell them to not worry about that. I'll tell them to either change it in the system or you disregard it. We already know.
Yeah,
to
yeah,
not
no worries.
take
You
credit.
listen to
Yeah.
the police when the police is present.
But I'll tell them to, they can even change the settings in the system so it doesn't get flagged as late. I'll say that we've changed the due date till Wednesday. Of course, if you want to hand it in earlier and be free, that's up to you, right? So,
Only Hannah can do that.
so Wednesday would be the outer limit, right?
Yeah.
Okay,
The
yeah.
both the DQs and the CON.
Yeah, DQ is still due on the same day, that's.
Yeah, the same day, right? There's
Uh-huh.
no change.
I don't know about you, but personally, I prefer to sit down and grade everything at one time. I don't like to grade one day and one another day.
Yeah, of course.
Yeah, so I
Yeah,
think,
do the same.
so just do it all on Wednesday, because he's not gonna grade it before that anyway, right? So it doesn't do you much advantage to hand it in early unless you want to be free, right? If you just wanna be finished with it, that's your choice. But he's not going to get to it, to correct it until after Wednesday.
Yeah.
Okay, all right. I feel like when I grade papers in different settings, I'm different.
Different feeling. We
Yeah.
turn on our filter and we have different
Right?
feelings.
Sometimes I'm tired
Yeah.
or for whatever
Anxiety,
reason, so my
motivation.
subjectivity gets in the way of the grading.
Yeah.
So if I do it all at the same time, I have a better notion of how the class as a whole is doing. Right, so if I do it on one day and somebody did really well, and then on another day I'm in a bad mood, right, then I think the whole class didn't understand, it's all my fault, and oh, what's going on, right?
Can you let us know when you have the best mood?
Well, he's grading him, ask him. Ask him what's his best day.
I'm always in a bad mood.
Yeah,
No submission.
so tomorrow is our last day together, right? So I think that we should talk a little bit about the other PA and the other CLA, just to make sure, because this certainly took a lot of time, right? We really had to spend like almost one whole day just right accumulating between all the times we've talked about this. So let's talk about those two and make sure that there's no, if we need clarification, we can do it now. So please take a look at those tonight and just read them and see if you understand the question. We know you haven't read the chapter yet, so you wouldn't know the theory, but in theory, do you understand the question? And then the other thing too is, I don't know if you want to just quickly read the discussion questions to see if there are any doubts about those. All right, so tomorrow we can spend our time doing that. We've got 2 more presentations, right? So let's do our presentations first again tomorrow, because otherwise sometimes the discussion goes so long and then we're pressed for time for the presentations. So we'll finish those first, and then we'll talk about the other assignments and discussion questions. I won't go over all the discussion questions one by one, only if you have a question. So you read them tonight, bring your questions to class, and then we'll discuss them. And then we'll do the review questions that I had planned yesterday that we still didn't get to. Okay? All right, any other last requests or anything?
And
To
be
the
concerns.
hypothesis 3, still like, okay, the idea is teacher saying to discuss the input and output.
Yeah, because he brought up the point that the first part of the question is talking about the natural order hypothesis, right? Whereas the second part of the question is really talking about the monitor hypothesis. And so if we go back and look at it again, we see that the natural order hypothesis is more concerned with input. Well, no, actually it's production, right? Because they see that you produce in this certain order, regardless of the input. Children learn in a certain order. So based on their input, they then produce in a certain order. And then with the monitor is also concerned with production, right? So I think what I said before was not correct. So they're both concerned with production, right? So in the second one, you're talking about the other theories. So the first theory is natural order, the second theory is monitor, right? So you need to discuss both theories according to Krashen. The first one is talking about, it asks about second language, right? We know from the natural order hypothesis that they were talking about first language. But this question is asking, do you think this also happens with second language? And then, how do you see the monitor model affecting that? All right?
3 points.
2 points?
One lesson.
Yes, there are 2 points you need to cover, 2 theories you need to cover actually. So more than 3 points because the monitor model has 3 points inside it, right? So the natural order hypothesis talks about the morphemes. As I told you before, I don't really care about the morphemes themselves. I'm not concerned about the fact that we learn present progressive first. Unless, for example, for some reason, your specific argument is taking that into consideration, like yesterday we were talking about in Vietnamese, we don't have some of these morphemes, so therefore I think that we won't see them in second language acquisition, right? Otherwise, you don't need to get into talking about the specific order of the morphemes. Just the general concept that there is an order, okay? So, and then, you know, if questions come up later, I'm available online, send me an email, I'm still lost, I don't get it. If you want to talk by Skype or something like that, we can set up a time, okay? So, we can continue the conversation if we need to.
Let's have with the quiz. What's the
Yeah.
review for the quiz?
So, to review for the quiz, we better do that tomorrow too. Honestly, to tell you the truth, I'm revising the quiz. Because I received it the other day, and there's a couple of items in there that I don't like, that aren't very good. There's one that's just way too easy, it's ridiculously easy. Yeah, really, I know, I gotta take that one out, it's a joke.
Please do not.
It's a joke. And then, there's a couple, what are the other problems, I can't remember. If they were too difficult or not clear or something, or talk about some obscure theory that you don't need to know. So there were some stupid items in there, honestly, you know, so